Hello! Today I would like to talk with you about Japan, or maybe just a little bit of the Japanese imperialism. Now, the sparkling fact for me today is the fact that the Japanese Navy still uses the rising sun flag, which is, by the way, this one. Now, technically, from a legal perspective, the military flag, which is the rising sun flag, is required by law. And yeah, technically, Japan doesn't really have a navy, but it's called the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. Having said all of that, Japan is really remarkable and is probably one of the most capable population on Earth by social discipline, the capabilities that they have. Now, let's go for another example, which is, by the way, a true fact. Japan was forced to be open to the West with the Convention of Kanagawa in 1854 by the American Commodore Matthew C. Japan, at that time, 1854, was so underdeveloped that when they saw the American ships sailing against the wind, they could not really cope with that. They were just terrified. Now, we know that it was thanks to the steam engines, but for them it was really not understandable. Now, after that moment, in just a few decades, they grew up to such an extent of already being a nation superpower. And in 1905, really few decades after that moment, after being forced to open to the West, they completely, they was capable of wiping out the Russian Navy in the Battle of Tsushima. And at that moment, it was the US intervention that saved the Russian from leaving Siberia to Japan. Then, of course, there was the World War II with all the atrocities all around committed by the Japanese. And this gives us the idea that Japan is a really, admirable population, but they're also very proud of themselves. And we have to say the right words. They are racist. There are cases of descendants of immigrants who have been living in Japan for centuries, but they're still considered immigrants, foreigners, for sure, not Japanese. Probably they don't consider Japanese at the very same level, even Japanese who are born in the very south, like, where the American bases are. And this is an issue because the fertility rate is 1.34 and you would need at least 2.1. So 1.34 means that they have a shrinking population, and in their case, it's also an aging population. And this really poses a lot of challenges when Japan wants to counterbalance the rise of China, which, by the way, is also a case of aging population. Nevertheless, numbers count, and the two populations are really different. US is playing Japan against China, and even though everything said so far is true, so the population is shrinking, so it might be an issue. It's also true that you better not underestimate Japan, robotics, the social discipline. They are a de facto nuclear power because they have the rockets, they have the nuclear plants, so in just a few months they could be able to just assemble all of that into a military application. And getting back to the start of this video, they have one of the greatest navy on Earth. So we will see. Cheers, take care.